Good evening, ghouls and fiends. Welcome once again to another edition of the Ministry of Horror over on twitch.tv/tezzius. I'm your host, Tezz. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome back once again for another Thursday edition of the Ministry of Horror. Don't worry, don't adjust your calendars too much. The show isn't permanently moving to Thursdays. It's just kind of worked out that way that I've either had things on the Friday, or I've been in transit traveling, or tomorrow I've got an eye screening. Should be fine and everything, but they put some stuff in your eyes which mean that they are blurry as fuck for about 6 hours afterwards. So I kind of thought, well, absolutely no point in planning a stream then, because I will not really want to sit in front of lights and screens that I can't really see, and probably won't be able to see that well at that stage anyway. So once again, doing it on a Thursday. Welcome. We've got Fran the Cannon in the chat and Vixem UK in the chat as well. How's it going, y'all? It's been a hectic old week since the last show. For the wrestling fan base, it was AEW All In at the weekend. So myself and my lovely girlfriend Victoria went to that and spent the day in London, which was lovely. Had these enormous croissants, which they were brilliant, but I mean, Christ, there was so much of it, so much. A croissant, a pain au chocolat. So it was a nice novelty, very, very nice. But there's no way one person could eat one of them. But we made a good little effort. I think the only sort of the only, I suppose, negative of getting the croissants and pains au chocolat is that everyone stops going, sorry, can I take a picture? Can I take a picture of it? Can I take a picture of your croissant? Like, yeah, okay. I kind of the first couple, it's like, yeah, it's quite funny because it's an enormous croissant, and then after that, it's just like, yeah, I kind of want to we kind of just want to eat this now. Leave us alone. They don't care about us. It's the food at the end of the day. But yeah, that was fun. And then yeah, we met up with Lawrence and Berkeley's. Lawrence, Merrill, and Berkeley's at Wembley. Good fun, awesome show. Had an amazing time. In terms of horror, I've watched a couple of new horror films. We've got a couple of reviews on tonight's show, both Shudder exclusives. We'll be getting to them a bit later on. There's not a hell of a lot of horror news this week, which, touch wood, means it might be a condensed show. Not that I ever want to do condensed shows, but sometimes if there's not that much to talk about, there's not that much to talk about. That will then lead us on to our featured presentation, which tonight we are having a little look-see at the Blair Witch Project and its subsequent sequels. And we're briefly going to touch on the video games. There's been books and comics along the way as well. I've not dabbled in either of those formats or mediums for Blair Witch, so I won't be talking about them. But yeah, we're going to briefly touch on video games as well. So if you're a fan of the Blair Witch Project or Blair Witch series, drop by, have a chat. Let's talk about Blair Witch a bit later on. And I think that as a little kind of a preview for the next show, which will be in obviously 2 weeks' time, if possible, I'm going to aim to have seen the Nun 2 before the next show. Because that is out next weekend. I probably wouldn't want to see it opening weekend. I normally think it's just going to be round at that point. But if I can squeeze in a viewing before the next show, we will review The Nun 2 and also look at the Conjuring film series as a whole, which obviously is going to include the Annabelle films, the Nun films, the Conjuring films themselves. And even though it's been disputed whether it is an official part of the series or not, I'm pretty sure it's been released as part of the series. We'll also look at The Curse of La Lorena, because that previously has been part of the series. It's only recently hit the news when a producer or Blumhouse, whatever, have said, no, that's not actually part of the Conjuring series. It's been released as part of the Conjuring series, so okay. Anyway, I hope everyone is well. If you're watching this live, be sure to give the Twitch channel a follow. If you're catching up on this later on podcast platforms, hello or welcome. You can always check us out live, twitch.tv/tezzius. Or if you're listening to us on your podcast platform of choice, which at the moment is still just Spotify or Apple Podcasts, at some point when things aren't hectic and busy and I'm not either doing overtime or studying or traveling, I will look at the other bits and bobs. Maybe, I don't know. Depends if I can be asked. Be sure to give us a follow and a review on that. All jolly good. So, yes, we've got Vix and Fran in the chat. Vix just checking up on Fran. Fran, I hope you are feeling better. Fran's been a bit under the weather recently. Should we just get started? Should we just jump into the horror news? Yeah, we're going to have a swift show. If you are watching live, we are going to stick around for a watch party after the show. I think I found a film which has been on my, I'm not going to say it's been on my to watch list, but in terms of the limited, availability of decent looking films on Prime, decent looking horror films, that is, it's been on the potential to stream list, I should say, for a little while. So if you are watching live, stick around after the show. We'll do a watch party and watch a film called Hosts. I've already forgotten what it's called. Held, not Host. Host is a completely different film. Held. We will potentially watch that. Probably will. I'm up for watching a horror film tonight, but we shall see. I don't have a super late one. It is a school night. I've got work in the morning. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into some horror news. This is the horror news. There you go. I completely did something different to what I did last time with the Friday the 13th. Vix said, also check me out. I was watching a scary movie before the show tonight. What scary film were you watching, Vix? Let us know in the chat. So first up, as with all my horror news, this comes from bloodydisgusting.com. 2 of this year's big theatrical horror releases are available at home this week. So first up, Universal's monster movie The Last Voyage of the Demeter has been released on digital outlets today, as at August 29th, less than 1 month after the film sank its teeth into the big screen. Wow. It really didn't get much of a chance, did it? On digital, you can rent the film for $19.99 or purchase it for $24.99. So I guess that's the at-home premiere sort of prices then. Directed by Andre Ovredal, who did The Autopsy of Jane Doe, which is very good, and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I keep meaning to give that another rewatch. I've seen it once. It was fine. I can't say there was much too memorable about it, but it's fine. This latest Dracula movie leaves the comedy of Renfield behind for a classic Hammer-style horror movie at sea. The film is an adaptation of a single chapter from Bram Stoker's classic horror novel known as The Captain's Log, which has never been adapted like this before. Corey Hawkins, who was part of Kong Skull Island and The Walking Dead, stars in The Last Voyage of the Demeter. The latest version of the script was written by Zach Olkowitz, who worked on Bullet Train, which I couldn't finish. Bullet Train was not for me. So the chapter tells the story of the Russian schooner Demeter, which was chartered to carry private cargo, 24 unmarked wooden crates from Carpathia to London. The film will detail the strange events that befell the doomed crew as they attempt to survive the ocean voyage, stalked each night by a terrifying presence on board the ship. When it finally arrived near Whitby Harbour, it was a derelict. There was no trace of the crew. Also coming to home media this week, in the wake of scaring up 66 million worldwide earlier this year, the 20th Century Studios horror movie The Boogeyman is also available on at-home digital beginning August 29th. You can buy or rent the film for $14.99 via outlets including Prime Video. In this horror thriller from the mind of Stephen King, 2 sisters, along with their therapist father, are reeling from their mother's death. When a desperate patient comes to their home, he leaves behind a terrifying entity that feeds on its victim's suffering. Sophie Thatcher and Chris Messina star alongside David Datsmalchin, Marin Ireland, Vivian Lyre Blair, and Madison Hu. Scott Beck and Brian Woods and Akilah Cooper wrote the original draft of the script, with Mark Heyman being brought on board as well. The original story was first published in 1973 before finding a home in Stephen King's Night Shift collection in 1978. The film marks the first time the tale has been adapted as a feature. I'm pretty sure I haven't actually read the Boogeyman short. I do own Night Shift somewhere around, but I haven't really. I don't think I've actually read the original story. Vix was watching Kiss the Girls, not finished it yet, but really enjoying it. Oh, is that the sequel or the precursor to Along Came a Spider? I think it's connected, or it's the same characters in Kiss the Girls and Along Came a Spider. They're connected, I'm pretty sure. I know they've both got Morgan Freeman in them, but I am sure that it's the same character, I want to say. Let's have a look. Kiss the Girls, 1997. And starring Morgan Freeman. A sequel titled Along Came a Spider was released in 2001. Boom, knew it. Bam. And yes, T, it is the prequel. Boom shakalaka. So yeah, I mean that's it for the new theatrical films. It's slim pickings. I had gone on to Prime earlier on my lunch break at work to see if there was anything else on Shudder worth a watch to review. And Shudder they've done the thing. They've reverted their platform on their channel on Prime to take out the new film section. I don't know why. I don't know why you would have a channel and when you click on it, it doesn't at the top say new releases. Is it just because they're like, oh, I haven't really got anything new? It's gone back to the first thing being popular movies, popular series, documentary, horror, thriller. Like, come on. I mean, they listened to me once before, as far as I'm concerned. Hopefully they'll listen. I know they don't listen. But yeah, that's absolute bullshit. So no additional horror films have been reviewed. Let's have a look at what else we got next. Fog City, indie horror movie from Kill Her Goats director, is crowdfunding a steelbook release. Directed by Steve Walsh, the indie horror movie Fog City has already wrapped production, and the team has taken a unique approach to a post-production campaign over on Kickstarter. They're not funding the movie, rather they're funding a 4K steelbook release of the movie. And with 36 hours to go, the crowdfunding campaign has smashed through its goal. That's pretty awesome. Walsh and his team were looking to raise $50,000 to make the steelbook release a reality, and today a whopping $55,408 has been donated by well over 600 individual backers. So what is Fog City, you ask? Walsh promises a bloody horror movie that favours practical effects. In fact, he says that the film features all practical effects and no CGI. In Fog City, a group of friends seal themselves inside a secluded Cape Cod vacation home after a mysterious orange fog leaks from an old nearby factory. Once trapped, they quickly learn there is no escape. Okay, well, I mean, that sounds pretty damn badass, and I do enjoy a good steelbook release. The annoying thing is, though, how flippin' expensive that they are in the 4K world, that is. 4K releases are already expensive as it is. They're £25, £10 more than your regular Blu-ray. So when it comes to a 4K version, like I recently picked up Scream 6 because that's been out on home release for a little while, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that. The cinema, I really rated that quite highly. So I was tempted to pick that up and also to pick up Evil Dead Rise. I ended up kind of thinking, you know what, I'm not going to buy both in 1 month because that's quite a lot of money to spend on films. One is enough. And also if I bought them both as 4Ks, then that's 50 quid on 2 films. That's a little bit excessive. I've got to be penny wise, not pound foolish. Yeah, that's the phrase. But they have some very nice steelbook releases. There's a lovely steelbook release of Scream 6 4K, which has got the Ghostface on the train, which is a really, really cool scene in the film. There's also an amazing looking steelbook release of the 4K version of Evil Dead Rise, which has got the mommy deadite doing the shush gesture. But yeah, because they're steelbooks, they're 35 quid instead of 25 quid. So I do like a good steelbook, not that much though. No. Let's move on. Fog City. So that sounds pretty interesting. Gonna have to keep an eye out for that. New extended gameplay video released for Banishers: Ghosts of New Eden, along with new Red Echoes edition. Just seeing the chat, we got Eddie Beast now as well. Hey Eddie, how's it going? Hope you are well. And they're chatting about books. Fran Can says, in regards to Kiss the Girls, it's based on James Patterson Alex Cross series. I read a ton of the books. There's also a later third film, Alex Cross, with a different cast. Vic says, more books for me to read. That's it, I'm making a list. Fran Can, Pound Foolish, is that the name of the Clown the It prequel series? You know, I mean, we haven't heard too much more about Derry, the prequel series, so maybe Pound Foolish is the father of Pennywise, who knows? So with Banishers: Ghosts of New Eden locked in for a November 7th release, Focus Entertainment and developer Don't Nod have dropped more gameplay footage from the upcoming action RPG. The devs have also announced that pre-orders are now live, including the newly announced Red Echoes edition for those wanting something a little different from the collector's edition. In a world where the souls of the departed roam, you play as a couple of Banishers, Antia Duarte and Red Mac Wraith are experienced spirit hunters entrusted with the daunting task of lifting a malevolent and ominous curse. After an ill-advised attack, Antia is killed, leaving her lover in solitude and profound despair. Torn between their vows to protect the living from malicious spirits and the nightmare of Antia's condition, they'll wander the eerie wilderness of North America to liberate her from her new plight, whatever the cost. Enter the lives of New Eden's communities in a world plagued with supernatural creatures and ancient secrets. Combine Antia's spiritual powers and Red's arsenal to defeat and banish the souls that torment the living. Uncover secrets, navigate mysterious landscapes, and meet memorable but tormented characters whose fate rests in your hands. So I'm gonna skip through the trailer.
And everyone here owes her their lives.
Graphics look a little bit last gen. This isn't a bad thing, but
This thick skin is doing. These people.
Yeah. I mean, looks kind of interesting, but I think in terms of horror gaming, Alan Wake 2 is looking pretty cool, so I certainly will not be anticipating dropping my dosh on Banishers: Ghosts of New Eden. Hey, Graf's in the chat. Good evening, all. How's everyone doing tonight? All good, my friend. All good. Hope you are well. Hope you enjoyed All In, and the travel wasn't too. Well, I saw on the Discord that you had some trouble with the travel back, but hopefully you've recovered and all is well now. In terms of gaming, I had been looking yesterday actually into any sort of new games about for a reasonable kind of price. Short answer, there isn't. I mean, I still do want to play Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I thoroughly enjoyed Fallen Order. That is now coming down in price. It was about 70 quid at release, and I thought, fuck that. Unless it's a game I really, really, really want, and even then I think 60 would be like my sort of limit. I thought there's no way I'm dropping £70 on that. No thank you. That's now down to like £45 I think I've seen for Xbox, 48, something like that. It's getting there. It's getting there. Still not enough for me to go, you know, I'm gonna open my coin purse and I'm gonna drop some change on this video game, not yet. I was having a look for Diablo 4 because I did really enjoy Diablo 3. That's still hella expensive, again, like 60, 70 quid on Xbox, PlayStation. I did see that if you buy it directly through Blizzard on PC, you can get it for 45 quid, which I thought that's not bad. But still, I'm not yet committed to drop that coin for it, not yet. But I typically ended up looking at some games which are a bit more into what I would normally kind of stream. So they're both story-based games, and they're both at the sort of £20 or under price range, and they're both new games. So I mean, it's kind of a win-win there. I haven't hit purchase on either of them yet, and if I do, then it will just be the one this month. Because again, watching that coin, I'm watching that coin. Also, I've got an MOT in the service coming up, and last time that really destroyed my wallet. So I'm trying not to be presumptuous about expendable cash. But there's a horror game which we talked about a little while ago called Fort Solace. Looks pretty cool. The reviews are very 7 out of 10, which isn't bad. It's obviously not amazing, but it's still not bad. 7 out of 10 is decent. People sometimes look at that as, oh, that's not that good. 7 out of 10 it's a good game. It's good. You'll get enjoyment out of it. Which it looks pretty decent. But then the other one, which I suppose is not horror related at all, but I thought, I could just see myself playing that game just because I like a good narrative focused RPG walking sim, essentially, is Goodbye Volcano High. I don't know anything about the story, but it instantly made me think Life is Strange mixed with A Night in the Woods. And I really enjoyed Night in the Woods. It's weird. It's a really weird game, but I find with those sort of games where it's basically just like a side scroller, or you're not doing too much, but you're just developing the story. I find those games so fucking relaxing because you literally can just go, right, let's have some dialogue. Let's see what dialogue options we've got. Let's progress the story through that. It's not really a challenge. It's just sit back and relax. So, I haven't pulled the trigger yet, and I think I'm probably going to end up having to do some overtime on Sunday because it's month end at work and whatnot, and my girlfriend's down tomorrow and Saturday, so I'm not gonna hit the purchase. I'm not gonna hit the purchase on anything just yet. I'm gonna be very conservative with any new game I play. But whatever game I do get, if I get a new game, we will look to stream it. Last game I streamed was a bit of Baldur's Gate. I will definitely be looking to get Alan Wake 2 when that comes out, which I think is November or October. Yeah. If we do Fort Solace, horror fans, that'll be getting streamed. If we get Goodbye Volcano High, then RPG fans, that'll be getting streamed as well. Let's move on to our last little bit of news. As I told you guys, it's a compact little week, very, very quiet. Hammer Horror is returning to life with a new owner and new slate of movies. You can't talk about the history of horror without talking about Hammer Horror, with Hammer Film Productions over the years releasing countless classics, including their own takes on iconic monsters such as Dracula, Frankenstein, and The Mummy, and their movies solidifying the likes of Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing as true icons in the horror genre. Variety reports this morning that British theatre producer John Gore has acquired Hammer Films and Studios, and he'll lead a new team aiming to revitalise the legendary brand. Under Gore's management, the plan is to invest significantly in Hammer Films to breathe new life into the studio, blending the nostalgic charm of Hammer with modern cinematic style and innovation, while preserving its heritage and library. Variety's exclusive report details a new slate of films and projects will be unveiled imminently. First up is the Eddie Izzard starring Dr. Jekyll, set for release later this year. Okay, so the last that I'd heard, Hammer were kind of back and they were doing things, but thinking about it, was that not quite a few years ago now? I have a feeling that The Woman in Black was a Hammer release. I certainly remember that there was a big new Hammer release 10 years ago or so now. And following on from that, another Hammer release was The Quiet Ones, which I remember wasn't that good. It was just a bit like, it's all right. I'm pretty sure it's the Quiet Ones. But thinking about it, I haven't seen anything else from Hammer. And I guess this could be why, that the label, the name has been quiet, and whatever is going on there is going on there. Not ideal. Interesting. Let's have a brief look at the chat before we move on to our reviews. So Gruff talking about the travel for All In. Oh yeah, it took me a lot longer to get home than it did to get there. Booked a hotel for next year so can make the most of it. I was really gutted I couldn't meet you and Law though. Yeah, man, that would have been cool catching up. Yeah, we briefly met Law, Meryl, and Bericles at the liquor station, which is pretty cool, pretty close by. It's like a 5 to 10 minute walk from there to the arena. And yeah, as we kind of got separated, Bear had already gone to his gate with his friend, and we were in the gates next to where Meryl and Lawrence went. And so we briefly met up with them afterwards before they had to head off for their trains to get back to their car, and we hit the road as well. So didn't really get to do too much chatting and whatnot, but it was cool, a really cool event. But yeah, next year I think we're definitely going to be looking to go again. It was brilliant. It were right good. It were. Fran, trying to tackle a few older games. Just started Life is Strange. I loved Life is Strange. I didn't think that I would. It was a game. It's one of those games that I'd had in my little library for a little while, and I'd sort of just go, I'm going to play it. I picked it up for a few quid, I think, on the Xbox or whatever. And months down the line, I then just started to really get wrapped up into the story. And then I played the second one. I played the kind of the prequel to the first one, Before the Storm, and I got True Colors as soon as it came out, and I love them. I love them games. It's kind of strange. Like, it reminded me of when I picked up the first Mass Effect. Picked it up on the cheap on the Xbox. Didn't really know anything about it. Played little bits here and there, but again, it wasn't a game that I was just like, oh man, I've got to put lots of hours into this. Sorry, I really needed a drink. But it's the sort of game where a particular mission or a particular story moment really just drew me in. And I think that's kind of the hallmark of, for me, a really good game, where it's not just a case of I've been wrapped up in the hype or I'm a fan of the series, so I have to play it. I kind of pick it up on a whim, and something just connects. Something just really kind of clicks, and I end up just having a brilliant time. Yeah. Well, I hope you're enjoying Life is Strange. If you do like it, Before the Storm is really good. Life is Strange 2 is alright, but the little kid brother's so annoying at times. And I really enjoyed True Colors, and it's modern. It's really good. The Gruff, I have Star Wars Fallen Order. I bought it in a sale last year, played 20 minutes and not been back to it as usual. I found with Fallen Order, moving the settings down to it's no surprise that I played games on easy. I'm not gonna talk nonsense, talk myself up here or anything. But when I move the settings down, so I don't know if it's fully easy. There's a not super easy, but there's an easy mode. It became so much more enjoyable because you're not just getting annihilated every 5 seconds. I know not everyone really liked Fallen Order. For some people, it was a bit Souls-like, which is why I knocked the easy setting. Put it on easy setting. And some people didn't like the whole, all the sliding levels or how the levels were laid out. I'm not even really a big Star Wars fan, but I really quite enjoyed Fallen Order. Fallen of Star Wars, obviously this isn't horror related. Ahsoka has just kind of started. I am tempted. As soon as I put it on, though, I did start thinking, is this going to be like Marvel, where it's really going to be of a benefit if I've seen all the other stuff before it? And that has halted me watching episode 1. I've watched about 20 minutes of episode 1, but I did start thinking, I only saw the first series of Mandalorian. I haven't seen any of the animated stuff like the Clone Wars or Rebels or the other bits like the Book of Boba Fett or Origins of a Jedi, whatever the other. I haven't seen very much at all of the extended Star Wars universe. But Ahsoka does look quite cool, and I am quite interested in this Thrawn character and all that stuff. But I am suddenly thinking, I don't know, is this going to be Marvel-esque? It would make sense because it's Disney. But if anyone's watched any Ahsoka, let me know. And if it's easy enough to get into without having had to watch 25 other hours of things. Eddie, I've just got AW5 Forever today. I can't wait to play it. Oh, enjoy, Eddie. Have fun with that. Gruff, have I streamed any N64 yet? No, I've been away since last week. Came back on Tuesday, and yeah, haven't done any streaming. Just been doing bits and bobs here and there. Lots of kind of studying and stuff. So no streaming yet of the N64. Once it's quiet, I will look to do some Ocarina of Time or something maybe. Wasn't Let Me In a Hammer film, Fran the Can says. That you could be correct there. I certainly remember there was a few films that were Hammer releases for just a little period of like I want to say the early 2010s, maybe the late 2000s. Eddie, will Lawrence be back on stream? Don't know. Don't know, Eddie. Maybe drop him a message on Twitter, perhaps. I don't think there's he has any plans to return in anytime soon. I know he's very busy with lots of other stuff. He's doing a lot of singing, touring around the country. Yeah, I don't know if he has any plans to be back streaming. Fran the Cannon, Rebels is worth watching. Seen the Ahsoka trailer and got major Rebels vibes. Gruff also second a Rebels watch. Okay, thanks guys. I will maybe give Rebels a watch. We've talked before about animated shows, and I did see a trailer for Invincible, which is a Prime show, and that looked really cool. I know there's a second season coming out, so I'm very behind on things, but I think in terms of me watching more animation again, it may well have to be Invincible. Anyway, it's review time. Let's get into some reviews. Just in case you're still in the chat, Vix, I will respond to your messages in due course. Sorry, I've seen a bunch of I've got a few messages on my phone, but I will when we get to watch party time, I will be able to have a little look-see. So first up in the reviews, I watched last week in about 3 different sittings, which may give a little indication of how I found the film. Bad Things, Shudder original. Bad Things is a 2023 horror thriller film written and directed by Stuart Thorndike, stars Gail Rankin, Harry Neff, Annabelle Dexter-Jones, Rad Pereira, and Molly Ringwald. Ruthie has recently inherited her grandmother's abandoned hotel and has returned to stay in it for a few days with her girlfriend Cal and their friend Maddie and tag-along Fran. Despite feeling uncomfortable there, Ruthie is hoping to fix her and Cal's troubled relationship and reluctantly entertains the idea of running the hotel at Cal's insistence. She watches several hotel management videos on her phone, including those featuring a woman, Miss Auerbach. The groundskeeper Brian arrives, expressing his disappointment that Ruthie's estranged mother, who had been staying at the hotel, has ended things between them before leaving town. Ruthie informs Cal that her mother arranged a meeting for her with a buyer, which upsets Cal. I mean, this is kind of looking at the plot on Wikipedia. It's not really got so much of a blurb as straight into the plot, but what could I say about Bad Things in terms of tonality? It's not a terrible film. It's not bad. It's essentially, I guess if I had to wrap it up in a few words, it's essentially looking at something like Kubrick's The Shining in 23, and I guess for the LGBTQ plus generation or market. I don't know how you'd word these things. It's all right. I mean, it's filmed well. The acting is decent in it. It's just not. It's just not massively coherent, I think is the best way that I could put it. Now it could be because I watched this in fits and starts. You know, I watched 20 minutes here, half an hour there, 20 or 5 minutes. You know, I watched them about 3 different sittings. That's for various reasons. Starting the film too late in the evening, having things occur while I'm watching it, so I have to just stop it and whatnot. And maybe if I'd have watched it from start to finish in one sitting, the ending wouldn't have been so out of left field. But it was quite out of left field. Now, did I? I'm not going to say dislike it because I didn't dislike it. Did I not really massively enjoy this because it does go down the psychological horror route? And more often than not, it's not that I dislike psychological horrors. It's just that I dislike the ones where it's like, oh, it was all in their head. And that's not to give a spoiler away. This isn't necessarily like that. It's just a bit like, what is actually going on here? And more to the point, do I really care? Molly Ringwald has a kind of minor role in this. People may recognise the name. She's quite a famous actress in the 80s, part of the Brat Pack. Did a lot of John Hughes films. I want to say John Hughes. I want to say John Hughes. Yeah, Pretty in Pink, that's a John Hughes film, isn't it? No, directed by Howard Dutch. Breakfast Club, that is John Hughes, yeah. I knew the name. Yeah, she has an appearance. I haven't really seen her in much recently, but she's looking good. Gail Rankin, I believe, is the lead. Ruthie Nod, fine. Harry Neff as Cal. I don't know if it's necessarily the performance, but the character is that sort of like dopey waif type, ethereal type character, which I guess is meant to be endearing, but normally comes across a bit annoying. Just where everyone's all a bit like kind of, a slight gust of wind's going to blow me over. I don't know. Just the performance was just like, do you need some caffeine or something to kind of be a bit more alert? I don't know. Just a lot of the performances kind of fly under the radar here. In terms of a score, I mean, no score from any film that's been reviewed this week is going to be as bad as Sand or Quicksand. I think it's called Quicksand. That was shit. I can't remember what I gave that. I want to say I gave that like a 4.5. Should have been a 3.5 because that was shit. I'm going to give this a 5. Actually, is that what I wrote down? I am going to have to just check my notes because I did write down a score. I did. Yeah. I have a little notepad on my phone just to remind myself of the films that I watch because of doing the show every other week. Sometimes I watch a film, you know, within a day of doing a show, and then when it comes to the next show, I completely forgot that that's a film I could review. 5 out of 10. I mean, it's all right in terms of being a bit of a mystery. There's some intrigue as to what is going on around this hotel. Are there ghosts around, which is where you get the shining element in this supposedly sort of abandoned hotel. What is real and what isn't? but I don't think it really capitalizes on that setting, or it tries to, or maybe it's trying to do the Kubrick Shining thing and putting its own spin on it, but that spin isn't that coherent, perhaps. Bit of a shame. Could have been better. 5 out of 10. Now, onto the film I watched last night. Another Shudder, don't think it's a Shudder original, but another film on Shudder. Vampir. Film from 2021. It's a European art house horror film. Just come onto Shudder here in the UK. It is the movie was set for production in June 2020, but was postponed due to the COVID-19 restrictions. The film eventually took place in September 2020. It is a British-Serbian-German co-production, shot in the municipality of Trstenik, and it was the first time for director Branko Tomovic to shoot in Serbia. Vampir is the first horror movie for the Yugoslav and Serbian actress Eva Ras. So the story takes place in rural central Serbia, from where the vampires myth originates. After witnessing a crime in London and looking for a place to hide for a while, Arno is offered a job by the charming yet ruthless local Vesna to look after a cemetery in a small remote village in Serbia. He soon starts to have nightmarish visions and is frequently visited by the mysterious older woman Baba Draga, who guides him into the darkness. Only the village priest seems to be trying to keep him safe from the sinister intentions of the villagers. Oh, sorry for knocking the mic there. European art house horror film. It certainly is art house. And I don't know why I kind of go it certainly is art house, because I do like some art house, but we've kind of discussed art house previously, especially when we did a David Lynch show. And the art house is very niche. Of course it is. I'm by no means an art connoisseur. I'm certainly no means an art house film connoisseur. I think that some of it, from my perspective, can be just pretentious shite. Some of it can have a genuine voice, and it's utilizing non-traditional ways of putting forth that story, and that can work sometimes. Don't ask me to try and explain some David Lynch films. I don't know, but I enjoy them for what they are, or for how I interpret them, or just visually and the music choices throughout. Vampir is it's okay. It's slow. For a 95-minute film, it is slow. And you are just following around Branko Tomovic, who wrote and directed the film. His character Arno, or Arnott. Yeah. The whole film, because I guess it's set in Serbia, and artistic choice of putting the film with this almost sepia tone. Everything has this kind of cold grey mixed with orange look. It does get quite creepy in some moments with some of the dark visions that he has. He does seem to have fallen into this bit of a nightmare setting. There's one point when he's trying to escape, and every direction he leads him back to the same position, kind of a bit like In the Mouth of Madness. Is his performance in it good? I guess so. I mean, you kind of guess early on. You don't find out about the crime that he witnessed in London till a bit later on, but you are initially thinking, why is this guy supposedly from London just decided to take a job in this rickety house where he has to twice a day look after this absolute shite heap of a cemetery, where apparently the local gypsies will often come, but he has to scare them off. There's a moment where he goes to a bar to try and get some food and drink. They say, well, no food here. Everyone's really kind of just staring at him and laughing at him, which is obviously very uncomfortable. And there's people dancing to this really obscure music, which I guess is meant to be traditional for that village or wherever that little remote village is. I don't know, traditional music. Very strange, very unsettling. It's quite easy to see where the film is going. I mean, the fact when you have a film called Vampir, which is obviously vampire, it's no big surprise when it gets to the finale and we see a vampire. I won't go into too much detail, but the fact is, I always think with these things, don't have your reveal moment be, oh, it's a vampire all along, when the film's called Vampire. There was that film which was like a take on, I don't know, Dracula, which starred I can't remember, but it was a girl from Game of Thrones. And that whole thing in the final third was, oh my god, it was vampires all along. And it's like, well, yeah, but the artwork and everything made that very obvious. And I always just think, if that's going to be your twist, don't give that away in your artwork, or in this case, your name. But I suppose it's more so taking a look at the origins of the vampire myth and taking it back to a more traditional setting. That said, it is kind of dull. It's not really offering anything new to the vampire genre, and there's no particular scenes that I thought were necessarily scary. There is one moment where he has a vision, and it's normally the nighttime visions that are the most kind of horrifying, I suppose you could say, where he wakes up in his bed and he's been restrained, and it's a scene kind of similar to the Jennifer Lopez film, The Cell, where the women have made a cut on his stomach and are pulling out his intestines, and they've set up this kind of rotary on barbs, kind of like a barbed wire, or barbed stick that they're attaching his intestines to, and then they're turning it and it's pulling his intestines out. I mean, that's always going to be creepy, but it was mostly effective the first time I saw it, when I think I can't remember the actor's name, but he's doing it to Vince Vaughn's character in The Cell. That wasn't a great film. That was a very creepy scene. I digress, though. Vampir, 5 out of 10 again as well. I can't really go too much higher. It's not bad. Did I enjoy it more than Bad Things? Not necessarily, but I wouldn't say it was worse than Bad Things. So on that basis, I've got to give it a 5 out of 10 as well. So unfortunately, we don't have any bangers this week in terms of the reviews. We've just got 2 mediocre films on Shudder. So I guess business, normal business has resumed. So now, look at that. Within the hour, we are moving on to our featured presentation. And we are talking about the Blair Witch Project. Before we do that, let's have a little look-see at the chat. So, talking about the cartoon series, Oh Man Invincible is amazing. Ed of the Beast, I followed him on Twitch, so if he does come back, I'll go on his stream. Brand's second season of Invincible is coming later this year. First season had some great fights. Vix, no worries regarding the messages I sent, so I wouldn't forget. Fair enough. For everyone else, I am busy clearing out cupboards for our lovely host to keep games, etc. in. So he got a few pictures. I shall look at them shortly. Fran the Cannon, It Was All a Dream is even worse than the It Was All in Their Head style twist. Oh yeah, It Was All a Dream is absolute bullshit. That is worse than when they go, oh, all of these events were just in your head. You know, there was no secret assassin attack, and it was actually your split personality and all that kind of shit. But yeah, if it's a dream, then it's like, oh, fuck off. That literally is a waste of the prior hour and a half, 2 hours. And Frown says, last time I saw Molly Ringwald was in Riverdale. I've never seen Riverdale. I don't know anything about it, other than it's got one of the kids that was in not Little Nicky, Big Daddy was in that. I don't know if it's the same. I don't know. Eddie the Beast, in regards to Vampire or Vampire, it does seem like an alright horror film. It was fine, I suppose. It was fine. It was alright. So, we're going to talk about Blair Witch Project. So, this kind of came about. I was talking to Victoria about what other kind of series can I touch upon? What other franchises out there are going to be good for the picking? Now, one of them that I will be touching on is The Exorcist, but we're going to save that for October when the new Exorcist film, Deceiver, comes out. So tie in a review with a look at the franchise. Similarly, as mentioned at the top of the show, in a couple of weeks' time, The Nun 2 is released. So I'm going to attempt to get down the cinema to watch that, review it, and then we can do a look at the Conjuring series as a whole. Fran the Cannon in the chat, Leprechaun. Oh God, Fran. That may be when I'm scraping the barrel, and the reason I say that is I want to say last year, maybe the year before, I'd started streaming the Leprechaun films. They were all at one point on Prime. I don't think they all are anymore. I'm not too sure. I watched the first one. A lot of fun. The first Leprechaun film is a lot of fun. The second film is a bag of shite. It is so boring. The acting is questionable in it. It drags like balls. So I haven't watched the third, or Leprechaun in Space, or Leprechaun Origins, Leprechaun Reborn, maybe. Eddie the Beast, what about the Scream series? We did the Scream series earlier this year, Eddie. Yeah, when Scream 6 came out, I did a review of that along with a look at the Scream series. That may have been one of the ones that kickstarted this year's kind of focus on looking at franchises. But yeah, enjoy the Scream series. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of ones to look at. We've done previously like a tier list last year of Halloween, I think a tier list, or just general review of Friday the 13th last year too. Nightmare on Elm Street we've already done as well. We've technically looked at Hellraiser, thinking about it, but yeah, that I suppose is almost infamous in its own right for other things completely unrelated to the episode or the topic of the Hellraiser films at hand. But yeah, I imagine, there's going to be a lot of franchises that slip my mind completely. We've looked at Evil Dead as well. But there's going to be plenty. There's going to be plenty. Potential ones in the future are going to be the Ring series. At some point, if I get around to watching The Grudge, but I don't think I've actually seen any of the Grudge films. I really want to get the box set from Arrow, but I'm talking myself out of it on the count of it's like 40, 50 quid, and I don't even know if I like the Grudge films, but it's just a really nice box set. There's going to be plenty, but one suggestion Sir Victoria had was Blair Witch Project. And I kind of thought, you know what? Yeah, that's fine because it's not a huge franchise. I really enjoy 2 out of the 3 films. You'll figure out which ones very quickly. But the Blair Witch Project is a 1999 American supernatural horror film. This is the original film. Directed and edited by Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez. It's a fictional story of 3 student filmmakers, Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard, who hike into the Black Hills near Burkittsville, Maryland, in 1994 to film a documentary about a local myth known as the Blair Witch. The 3 disappear, but their equipment and footage are discovered a year later. The purportedly found footage is the movie the viewer sees. The directors conceived of a fictional legend of the Blair Witch in 1993. They developed a 35-page screenplay with the dialogue to be improvised. A casting call advertised in Backstage magazines prepared by the directors. Donahue, Williams and Leonard were cast. The film entered production in October 1997 with the principal photography taking place in Maryland for 8 days. About 20 hours of footage was shot, which was edited down to 82 minutes. Shot on an original budget of $35,000 to $60,000, the film had a final cost of $200,000 to $750,000 after post-production edits. When the Blair Witch Project premiered at the Sundance Film Festival at midnight on January 23rd, 1999, its promotional marketing campaign listed the actors as either missing or deceased. Owing to its successful run at Sundance, Artisan Entertainment brought the film's distribution rights for $1.1 million. The film had a limited release on July 14th of the same year before expanding to a wider release starting on July 30th. While critical reception was mostly positive, audience reception was split. The Blair Witch Project grossed nearly $250 million worldwide, making it one of the most successful independent films of all time, as well as the 41st most profitable horror film, while also being a sleeper hit. The film launched a media franchise, which includes 2 sequels, novels, comic books, and video games. The film is credited with reviving the found footage technique, which was later used by similarly successful horror films such as Paranormal Activity and Cloverfield. Let's have a look at the chats going on here. Fran Cannon, what about another Super Bowl? Maybe with horror villains or final girls instead of films. The superhero villain and Super Bowls on YouTube are so good. I remember this coming out at the time that films weren't massively promoted on the internet, and so you went online and really weren't sure if it was real or not. Fran says. Well, yeah, I mean, in regards to doing a horror Super Bowl, yeah, I think that's a good idea. The last one we did was, I think, around Halloween time with Crimson Mel and Olus Carter. I do keep meaning to reconnect with those guys. Crimson Mel, I keep meaning to get on to do another show with his kind of links to the kind of the spirit world, and yeah, I just keep forgetting. I've got a flippin' awful memory. So yeah, another round robin tournament for horror villains or final girls could be a lot of fun. You know, which is the best? The best killer in a film, best sort of creature feature, creature. Interesting idea, Fran. Interesting idea. Yes. And yeah, I remember when this came out. There was also a documentary which came out at the same sort of time, which I think showed on Channel 4, if I remember rightly. It was like a 45-minute documentary, but about the town and everything that kind of went around it. And it, you did kind of know that they probably wouldn't be showing actual footage of people moments before they died, supposedly. But it was just so unique in that the way it was shot, unless you're a film connoisseur who'd seen things like Cannibal Holocaust, you probably weren't going to be that familiar with the found footage genre. And I remember when this was getting advertised. I'm pretty sure that it had one of those advertising campaigns where it would show clips of the film along with those kind of night vision cameras in the cinema showing audience reactions. And when you're quite young, they're quite effective, because you do think, like, you're not as cynical as you. Well, I'm not as cynical as I am when I get older. You know, the cynical me looks at those things and go, "Oh, fucking hell, people laying it on thick." You know, I've seen it before when, especially in this age of content creators, where people do reaction things and they just it's none of it seems legitimate. And I guess you have to, because, you know, other people do music reactions, and I will watch some of them occasionally if they're quite funny or they've got a unique insight. But you get some of them where it's just like my first time listening to the Ace of Base, or you know, listening to Master of Puppets, the Ace of Spades. Sorry, not Ace of Base, completely different songs. Someone's first time listening to the Ace of Spades, and they're just like, "What? Oh my god! Oh my god, this is blowing my mind." And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? You've never heard that song before. But it gets clicks. It's all about engagement, you know. I get it. But I always just think things like that just incredibly come across very disingenuous. So when I see reactions to things and people are like blowing their beans over certain moments, I always think that just seems disingenuous. But when you're a kid and seeing like people getting scared of something, you think, "Oh wow, that looks really scary. I want to see that." To be less fickle, you know. to be less pessimistic, that was such a different time. But yeah, this film interests the hell out of me, and I guess similar to when I first saw The Exorcist, which would probably been around this time, maybe a couple of years later. I remember kind of watching it, getting it rented on VHS from my local, it might have been a Blockbuster, but it might have been my local M&W's store. And I remember kind of feeling afterwards like, oh, it's kind of boring. It kind of dragged. The ending was all right, but it was kind of boring. But it being one of those films where certain things of it would just kind of play on you, or you'd think about them, or certain things would just really stay with you. And similar to The Exorcist, where over the years I've revisited it and just really, it's just shot up in my estimations. Kind of same with the Blair Witch Project. Whereas as a kid at first I was like, it's just boring. They're just walking through the forest and meh. I have, gain a better understanding of film and cinema techniques and uses in horror and all this stuff. My perception of it changes, and I now think, okay, there's a lot of good things that they're doing in there in terms of the backstory, with talking about Rustin Parr and the other events at like Coffin Rock. All of those elements, along with the moments when they're getting scared out in their tents, and when Josh goes missing, and they find his little bundle of the bundle of twigs with is it teeth? Yeah, teeth and hair in it. And then there's the moment which it got parodied the shit out of. But when you actually watch it as part of the film and take it for what it is, when Heather is basically doing an apology to her family and also Mike and Josh's family, taking responsibility for the predicament. She's like, snot coming out of her nose because it's all kind of genuine. She's saying she's sorry and she's so scared. It's really quite powerful, especially as we lead into the finale when they find the house of Rustin Parr, which has been, they've been walking through the woods trying to trace their steps back, but it's almost like the woods themselves are changing around them. They don't play into it too much because there isn't like a huge budget here. There's no sort of VFX. But it's almost like, are they just getting deeper and deeper and getting lost in these woods, or are they kind of trapped without their way out? And I guess that's played up a bit more in one of the sequels. But I thoroughly enjoyed the original when I've kind of given it a few more viewings. I never got to see it in the cinema. I can't remember if I saw the third film in the cinema or not. I think I may have done. I think I may have forced my friends to go and watch it because we'll talk about that when we get to it. Talk about the hype on that one. But let's have a quick look at the chat before we move on. Eddie the Beast. Did Ben Affleck play Michael Williams because the guy looks like him? No, no famous actors were in the Blair Witch Project, which kind of gave it more the authenticity. So, Eddie, when this came out, it basically was played. This was kind of before there was widespread use of Wikipedia and the internet, but it was almost played as if a actual footage had been found that was from 3 filmmakers making a documentary about the myth of a witch, like from the 1600s, and they'd gone out to the woods in this area to make a documentary about it. And supposedly this is the footage that has been found, and these 3 filmmakers have never been found. And because of that, there was this almost intrigue about, I mean, this isn't real, but it kind of looks like it could be real. Obviously, this day and age, you can easily just go, Blair Witch Project, Wikipedia, and then you've got everything. But at that time, it did give it that kind of feeling of authenticity, even though deep down, that it's not going to be real. They're not really going to have a widespread release of the last moments of 3 teenagers. But Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. The innocence of childhood, Gruff says, or maybe teenagehood. Yes, Fran, I appreciate the film, but hate how it was responsible for inspiring so many shaky cam, found footage, subpar films. That is very true. I mean, we've talked about the dime a dozen Exorcist films, which take what was done in The Exorcist and do it to lesser effects, over and over. Found footage, yeah, there was a ton of found footage shite. I think we did a found footage episode actually last year, if I remember rightly. There is some good stuff in there, and there's some stuff with notable moments. I really enjoyed Banshee Chapter. Chernobyl Diaries. I think the finale was really effective in it, but I did think it wasn't a brilliant film. And then obviously later on there was the Paranormal Activity series, which has got some real peaks and troughs in that series. But that was a bit much. That was kind of a bit later on. That wasn't so much shaky cam as opposed to found footage, but with the digital age. But yeah, there did become a period where you can have horror where you see all the gore, you see the violence. Some people love that. The other element of horror where what you don't see, but what is implied, is even scarier to some. It really depends on what people enjoy, right? There is no right answer. There is no, this is the best horror. No, this is the best horror. But with found footage, you can have moments where the camera's panning and there's something that you notice as the viewer but isn't focused on because they're not looking for it. The cameraman or the actor, whatever, isn't looking for it. And those can be quite scary. They're effective because you're just like, oh shit, makes you as a viewer at home, especially rewind. What was that? Look at it again. But you will then get the filmmakers, for want of a better term, who will go, we can cash in on this. We can just, do a shaky cam thing in the woods or a derelict location. And that's enough. I've seen when I was working, when I was an owner at Vipco, and you look at some film submissions, and it's cool seeing some stuff come across, but you do also see other stuff where, it's not going to happen. Because at the end of the day, you've got to look at things that you think will have a market, will have an audience. And you do see some shaky cam footage where it is just like, what is there for me as the viewer to enjoy in this? Because all that's happening is the camera's going like that. Like, you need to build up that tension, so when you do have that moments where the camera's doing that because the person's running, you feel that terror. But if it's just, oh my god, I can't see what's going on, camera's shaking all over the place, audio listeners, I'm just doing a hand shaking motion, it takes out all the effectiveness. That said, it was done brilliantly here. There isn't that much shaky cam, only really in the finale, and I think that's why it's really, and some of the moments when they're terrified their tents are being sort of attacked, and you don't really know what's causing it. It's in those moments where it's so much more effective because it's only done very briefly, and especially in the finale. I bang on about the finale of the film here because it really is a powder keg where you're entering this panic where they've just found this creepy house which is relating to the story from earlier on. As they're going around it, there's all these handprints and symbols, the Blair Witch symbols on the wall. And it just does all these callbacks to some of the myths that they'd heard about, these stories they'd heard about and they talked about earlier on in the film. It's just done brilliantly, top banana. So obviously it was a success. Did huge amounts of money. The marketing, as we've discussed, was incredibly effective, portraying them as missing individuals. Yes, there was a mockumentary called The Curse of the Blair Witch, which aired on the Sci-Fi Channel on July 12th, 1999. And also a website was maintained which has further details of the legend. I'm talking about the legend of the Blair Witch. And it's basically like a documentary presenting it as a real case, real murders, and it's brilliantly done, really, really well done. You could almost say that the marketing campaign was even more effective than the actual film. But it's absolutely brilliantly done. And yes, looking a bit further down on here, it does mention about how it was really started a new craze of found footage, which, you know, had Paranormal Activity, Wreck, Cloverfield, as mentioned, The Last Exorcism, which I did enjoy. I recently bought that a few months ago on Blu-ray, because I remember when it came out, and I was kind of initially put off by the fact it had what's his face's name attached to it, Eli Roth. It was using the whole presented by Eli Roth, even though he was just a producer on it. But I really enjoyed The Last Exorcism. Troll Hunter Chronicle is pretty good. Project X I thought was quite forgettable. I saw it on a flight. VHS, which I really enjoy the VHS series. End of Watch I've never seen, and The Den I've never seen. But also Archive 81, which is a very good series on Netflix. It's a shame that it was cancelled because it ends on quite an interesting note. So, we've talked about the very good Blair Witch Project. I need to pause to prepare myself to talk about its sequel. Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. I just need to pause there to prepare myself. And let's just delay things even further. Let's have a quick look at the chat. Fran the Cam, the bit I always go back to in Cloverfield is when the smaller versions start coming off the big monster. Do you know what? I really enjoyed Cloverfield. I haven't ever rewatched it, though. I don't know why. I always miss it when it's on TV, and I've never kind of been in the mood to put on Cloverfield, but I really enjoyed it when I saw it. Graf Carol Ann had never seen the film before, so we watched it not long after we moved in together. She thought the original film was pretty good, but really liked the 2016 film. Okay, we'll talk about that soon. So, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. American horror film directed and co-written by Joe Berlinger, and starring Jeffrey Donovan, Stephen Barker Turner, Kim Director, Erica Learson, and Tristine Schuyler. The plot revolves around a group of people fascinated by the mythology surrounding the film, The Blair Witch Project. They go into the Black Hills where the original film was shot and experience supernatural phenomena and psychological unraveling. Originally conceived by Berlinger and co-writer Dick Beebe as a psychological thriller and meditation on mass hysteria, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2 was significantly altered in post-production, which Berlinger would later claim compromised his original vision. Among the changes were a new soundtrack, additional editing, and the integration of entirely new sequences. It was released in theatres in North America and United Kingdom on October 27th, 2000, receiving negative reviews from critics and grossed a worldwide total of $47.7 million. Now, Joe Berlinger is a good filmmaker. He's done a lot of documentary series and documentary films. Such as Brother's Keeper, I don't know that one, but he did the Paradise Lost series. And I say series because I'm pretty sure that there's been 3. Yeah, Paradise Lost, The Child Murders at Robin Hood's Hills, Paradise Lost 2 Revelations, and then Paradise Lost 3 Purgatory. Basically, I'd kind of heard of those films via being a fan of Pearl Jam, and they would sometimes in their shows around the 2000s talk about freeing the West Memphis Free. Very, very interesting documentaries. Very hard to hear subject matter. But in terms of the case and the misconduct by the police and overlooking evidence and all that stuff, it's if you like a good crime drama, but it is on a very disturbing subject, give the Paradise Lost film series a watch. But he has more recently also directed Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, the Zac Efron starring Ted Bundy film, and he also did Conversations with the Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes, both of which I thought were quite boring. I guess it was during that period where Ted Bundy stuff was all the rage all of a sudden. and I didn't think either of them were that good. So, Book of Shadows. Now, I'd heard from a friend of mine a while ago that there's an interesting documentary on YouTube talking about all of the changes that had occurred in the editing for Book of Shadows Blair Witch 2 and what the film could have been. And it is interesting because a lot of stuff was cut, changed, and split apart. I don't know if there's a director's cut. If there is, I've certainly never seen a director's cut. But I didn't enjoy this at all. It was duff. It was crap. This is a bad film. It starts off by the fact it's playing into this kind of meta. It's a meta sequel. The film is contextualized in the beginning blocks of text as a dramatic reenactment of events that occurred after the Blair Witch Project was released in theatres. So straight away, I'm not a huge fan of that style of, meta does nothing for me. I mean, in terms of when it's meta and it's tongue-in-cheek for something like Deadpool, sure. When it's something like She-Hulk, I mean, whatever. I don't know much about the character. I thought the She-Hulk series was fairly inoffensive because I'm not that. I don't really care about the property. I'm not that au fait with it. But you get some meta where it's just like there's no point for the wink and the nudge at the camera if it's breaking the fourth wall. That is. I can't really think of any other good meta examples at the moment. But when it's things like, oh, you enjoyed this previous entry, well, the sequel is set in a world where that was a film. So for me, straight away, I'm just like, what? And it does something a bit different in terms of it's kind of, I suppose, setting up that whilst the Blair Witch Project was a film released in theatres, there was some truth to what goes on in those woods. But this is shit. It's not a good film. It's very much a cookie cutter 2000s kind of horror, late 90s, 2000s sort of set horror in terms of the kind of the MTV-esque editing from memory. I haven't rewatched this one. I've got no interest in it. But it did kind of feel like, did this need to have the Blair Witch name attached to it? Because it's so far removed from the type of film that you had with the Blair Witch Project. So in November 1999, tourists and fans of the Blair Witch Project descend on the small town of Burkittsville, Maryland, where the film was set. Local resident Jeff, a former psychiatric patient and obsessed fan, orchestrates a group tour of locations featured in the film. Among the group are graduate student Stephen and his pregnant girlfriend Tristan, who are researching mythology and mass hysteria. Erica, the Wiccan daughter of Episcopal minister. Episcopal? Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. I've not seen that word before. I probably have just heard it and I'm just reading it and thinking, it comes across weird. Minister, and Kim, a goth with psychic proclivities. They camp for the night in the ruins of Rustin Parr's house, where Jeff has placed surveillance cameras. Oh, straight away you're thinking Halloween Resurrection. Hoping to capture supernatural occurrences or ghost adventures. Jeff becomes unnerved when he notices a large tree located in the center of the house's foundation, claiming it was not there before. That night, another tour group arrives to camp at the ruins, but they are misdirected to Coffin Rock by Jeff and Stephen. Read any more on that. Fran in the chat says, I haven't seen this in many years, but do remember it felt like a complete missed opportunity. Yeah, I had no interest in rewatching this. I don't even think it's on any streaming platforms, as in, as part of the platform, not you'd have to pay for it. It was kind of crap. Yeah, not a fan. It just felt like the MTV at that time sequel to Blair Witch. Big missed opportunity. So that was kind of the Blair Witch Project. Quiet for a while. Things didn't go completely quiet. Because around the same time, in 2000, there was a trilogy of video games based on the films that were released, which greatly expanded on the myths suggested in the first film. The graphics engine and characters were all derived from the producer's earlier game, Nocturne. Each game was developed by a different team, focused on different aspects of the Blair Witch mythology: Rustin Parr, Coffin Rock, and Ellie Kedward, respectively. The trilogy received mixed reviews from critics, with most criticism being directed towards the very linear gameplay, clumsy controls and camera angles, and short length. The first volume, Rustin Parr, received the most praise, ranging from moderate to positive, with critics commending its storyline, graphics, and atmosphere. Some reviewers even claimed the game was scarier than the film. The following volumes were less well received, with PC Gamer saying that Volume 2's only saving grace was its low price, and calling Volume 3 amazingly mediocre. So I remember that I think I played a demo of Rustin Parr. I'm sure around this time I probably would used to get monthly like PC Gamer, and so there'd always be demos. So that's probably how I played a number of games on PC. But I also remember finding that very interesting and creepy. I never played The Legend of Coffin Rock. I think it's just because initially the setting just didn't really interest me. And yeah, the Ellie Kedward tale just passed me by completely. To be honest, I'll probably read up on them after the show. But I do remember Rustin Parr being fairly decent. Now, before we move on to the last film, there was a Blair Witch game released about 4 years ago, which I've always been told I need to play that. I should stream that. I should play that. I just haven't ever gotten around to it. But it's a Blair Witch game, and it's called Blair Witch. Was released for PC and Xbox. It's a first-person survival horror game, and is both developed and published by Blooper Team. It was released on August 30th, 2019, and later released on PS4, Nintendo Switch, and Amazon Luna. Oh, cloud game, and I thought, what the fuck's that? Yeah, I've not played it. It does look good. It's had very good reviews, but I never got around to playing it. Now, it does lead us on to the currently final film in the Blair Witch series, 2016's Blair Witch. It's a supernatural found footage horror film directed by Adam Wingard and written by Simon Barrett. It's the third film in the Blair Witch series and a direct sequel to the 1999 film The Blair Witch Project, while ignoring events of the Book of Shadows. Well done. Given the events of that film being a film within a film. Stars James Allen McCune. He's in that film. Okay, that's just blown my mind. So, the reason that's just something kind of popped up is I watch a lot of YouTube. A little while ago, I was watching this channel, which has been long dead for a while, called Sugar Pine 7. And James Allen McCune was one of that kind of group. He wasn't one of the funnier ones in the group, but they'd always say, serious actor James Allen McCune, to take the piss. Didn't actually even know that he was in this, but from the looks of this, he is the lead character. Do you know what? When you've seen a film that you enjoy and then years later you watch a YouTube series or something, and you just do not connect the dots at all. Wow. Right. Sidetrack completely. So James Allen McCune, Callie Hernandez, Brandon Scott, Corbin Reed, and Valerie Curry, and Wes Robinson. The film follows a group of college students and their local guides who venture into the Black Hills Forest in Maryland to uncover the mystery surrounding the prior disappearance of Heather Donahue, the sister of one of the characters. Development of the film began September 2009 when creators of the franchise Daniel Merrick and Eduardo Sanchez announced their intent to produce a third Blair Witch film. The film was a sequel to the first film, which potentially contained the actors from the first film in some context and would not refer to any of the events from Book of Shadows. In 2011, Sanchez remarked that further development on the sequel depended on getting Lionsgate Films to approve the idea and for his and Merrick's schedule to match up. The film went into developmental hell, and later the script was thrown aside. In 2013, a third Blair Witch film was again in talks, with Wingard and Barrett being hired to work on a new script. Initially, the film's connection to the Blair Witch franchise was kept secret, with the film having been shot under the fake title The Woods. The film's true title was revealed at the 2016 San Diego Comic-Con International. So I remember this. Now, I don't, obviously, I've never been to San Diego Comic-Con, never been to Comic-Con. And I often don't really watch announcement things on YouTube because, you get some videos where it's like, here's all the games at Gamescom, here's all the things at Comic-Con, here's all the announcement, blah, 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 here's the new trailers. If it's a particular new trailer that I want to see or I hear about, then I'll watch it. But I never normally bother with those things. But I distinctly remember that prior to San Diego Comic-Con, there had been a teaser for a new Adam Wingard film called The Woods. And I remember thinking, ooh, this looks interesting. I like Adam Wingard. I enjoyed You're Next. I enjoyed The Guest. Yeah, that certainly had my attention. But then I can't remember how I saw the reveal. I think it might have been like, I don't think it revealed in the name title, which is quite rare these days, but I don't think it revealed in the title of the YouTube video what it was, but it was like kind of big reveal of The Woods at San Diego Comic-Con, something like that, which I think is really smart to do in terms of preserving the surprise. I put it on, and it was showing the reaction of the video, and as I'm sure that it was The Woods. Camera pans out, has the title of The Woods, and then that disappears to show Blair Witch, and you got the crowd reaction going apeshit. Which I just remember thinking, whoa, okay, we've got a new Blair Witch film, and it's from a director that I quite like, and it already looks pretty good. Buckle up, bucko, count me in. Yeah, because nowadays, if there's any sort of reveal, straight away on YouTube, it would be like, new Blair Witch film release, new blah, blah, blah. And it just instantly takes away that potential for you to go, oh, wow. Instead you get like, oh, I guess I watched the video. When you're watching a video already knowing what the reveal is because of the thumbnail title or because of the thumbnail, completely takes away that organic moment of just being like, oh, holy shit, that's so cool, So I really kind of appreciated that time when that occurred. It premiered at San Diego Comic-Con July 22nd, 2016, and was screened at Toronto International Film Festival on September 11th, before being theatrically released on September 16th by Lionsgate Films. The film received mixed reviews, with critics noting it an improvement on Book of Shadows, although they criticised its writing and the special effects. The film grossed $45.2 million against a budget of $5 million. In 2014, James Donahue finds a video on YouTube containing an image of a woman he believes to be his sister Heather, who disappeared in 1994 near Burkittsville, Maryland, while investigating the legend of the Blair Witch. He decides to travel to the woods to find out the truth, accompanied by his friend Peter Jones, Peter's girlfriend Ashley Bennett, and film student Lisa Arlington, who wants to film James's search as a documentary, The Absence of Closure. Locals Talia and Lane, who found and uploaded the video, say they will show the group the location that they found the tape on the condition that they can join them. While walking through the woods and upon setting up camp for the night, Lane and Talia discuss the disappearance of Heather and her film crew, the 1940-41 murders of Rustin Parr, and other mysterious occurrences, which they ascribe to the Blair Witch. Specifically, Lane explains that the witch was not just left tied to a tree to die, instead tied high up in the tree with weights on her arms and legs to act as a makeshift torture rack. I'm just looking down at the script to see if they attribute the creature near the end of the film as being the witch or as being another sort of apparition. Doesn't say. Just teleporting. Okay, right. The long-limbed creature emerged from the chase. Right, okay. Blah 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 blah. Okay, sorry, went ahead reading all the shiatsu there. So while promoting VHS 2 at the Sundance Film Festival, director Adam Wingard and writer Simon Barrett ran into original Blair Witch Project co-filmmaker Eduardo Sanchez and producer Greg Hale and asked them why there were not any more Blair Witch films. Although nothing came of the meeting at the time, a few months later Wingard and Barrett asked me of Lionsgate to potentially work on a secret project. Barrett recalled that in the initial pitch meeting, Lionsgate had already crafted a story for a new Blair Witch film, and simply asked if they would be interested in making it. Barrett said the only thing I really pitched was the other characters. They'd originally conceived the film as a more similar to the first film, following its narrative fairly closely, with only 3 or 4 characters, I think, but I wanted more characters to give us more scare sequences. I also wanted a unique dynamic within the group from the start, so I pitched the idea of introducing some Burkittsville locals to the group. Barrett would later note that the film found the found footage genre more challenging, as they have only previously worked with it on the anthology VHS films. Barrett noted that with the VHS series, there was an inherent entertainment value where the segments were never meant to feel entirely real, an element that did not work for the Blair Witch series. Speaking on the issue to Blood Disgusting, Barrett said that even if our scares didn't work in VHS, hopefully people would still be entertained, and if they weren't, well, another short would start in a few minutes. He added that if a scare did not work in Blair Witch, we'd have nothing to fall back on. We just have failed completely and publicly. To prevent this from happening, Barrett and Winger extensively went over each scare to discover why it was scary and how the audience would react to it. For some sequences, multiple approaches were tried differently to give them options in the editing room. Connections to the Blair Witch Project include prior to the film's premiere at the San Diego Comic-Con, the fact that the film was a Blair Witch sequel remained a closely guarded secret, as the film was shot under the title The Woods. According to the film's writer Barrett, the film's sequencing was done to prevent backlash among internet commenters, who the filmmakers felt would react negatively to news of a reboot. Prior to the official premiere, Lionsgate went as far as to release a trailer for the film incorporating actual footage while still keeping the film's lineage a secret. The film was still publicly known as The Woods, even at Comic-Con, prior to its first screening, with IO9 reporting that the initial theatre for the screening was filled with posters for the fake film. After the screening, during which audiences realised that the film was a sequel, all the promotional material in the theatre was changed to reflect the film's actual title. So, I do enjoy this film. One of the most standout moments of it, I did think, was there's the moment which I think is showing on screen now where they're finding all of these Blair Witch symbols, and one of them has this girl's hair intertwined into it. There's a bit of an argument. I can't remember the exact context. It's been a few years since I've seen the film. But someone snaps the Blair Witch effigy, which instantly snaps the girl, unbeknownst to them when they do it. And I just remember thinking, what the fuck? That was insane. On the whole, it's an entertaining film. It doesn't obviously capture all the elements of the first film. It's quite different. It's a modern found footage horror film, and it really is expanding on the I guess like fan theories of is the Blair Witch is the Blair Witch in the forest creating like a time vortex? Does time work differently there? Was it that they just got lost in the forest, or did they actually kind of enter this kind of portal where time works differently? Rustin Parr's house wasn't there in the modern time, but due to them being in the forest so long, it moved them back to that. You know, it's all those different kind of theories. So it's quite interesting that it kind of brings that kind of into the franchise, makes it a bit more canon, that it kind of works out that way. I think it's generally quite a creepy little film. I do keep meaning to give it a rewatch. I just haven't had the time. But it certainly stands out for me. And I was always a bit disappointed that it didn't do better. Like, I never really quite understood why there was a bit of a negative reaction to it. I always thought, this is pretty good. What's people's issues with it? Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I guess, what future is there with the Blair Witch Project? That's 2016. Well, in April 2022, Lionsgate announced a new film as a reboot of the series that is in development. Does that mean we're going to get a new film anytime soon? I wouldn't hold one's breath. It's not new for Lionsgate to announce that, you know, there's going to be a new film and then nothing happens for a long old time. But watch this space, I guess. I'll certainly be keeping an eye out for it. I mean, it can't be as bad as Blair Witch Book of Shadows 2, sorry. Yeah, I enjoy it. So that brings us to the end of our little dive into the Maryland woods, into Burkittsville. Maryland, there we go. We've talked about the Blair Witch Project, we've talked about the series. Thank you very much for watching. We are going to do a little watch party, I think. I don't know. We'll hang about. We'll see if a film really catches our fancy, because I'm not particularly sold on Held. Maybe we'll just hang about and chat for a bit. But if you have been watching the stream, please give the channel a follow. Maybe a subscribe if you fancy. It's all good, all appreciated. I've had another sub while the show's been on, but I haven't been notified. So I think that may be Gruff resubbing, which I appreciate, although I don't know why it hasn't popped up with a notification, which it should do. If you're listening to some podcast platforms, then this should be going out maybe later tonight, if not tomorrow, Friday the 1st of September. Bloody hell. We're already in September as of tomorrow. Then, yeah, give the show a follow and all that good stuff. But yeah, stick around. Thanks for watching.